Hello 7th grade, and welcome to the first video lecture of the year. With this video, what I want you to do, just like in class, is to kind of follow along, take notes as you need to, as I go through the lecture today. And the good thing here with this lecture is you can stop it, rewind it as you need to, so feel free to stop, rewind, whatever you need to do as you watch the video. And so again, welcome to the first video lecture, and let's go and get started. Today we're talking about section 1-4 in your book, which is on the idea of cell membranes and being selectively permeable. And so this whole section is on cell membranes, that outermost layer of the cell. And so a cell membranes are selectively permeable, which means that some things can pass through and others cannot. So it allows some things in. I know in class before we talked about it being kind of the gatekeeper to the cell, kind of allowing some things in, keeping others out. And so that word we kind of use there is selectively permeable. It kind of selects. And permeable means to kind of pass through. So it selects what can pass through and what cannot. That's where the big job or function of the cell membrane. So now there are three ways that substances can move in and out of a cell. And they are diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. And we're going to look more closely at these three different types of ways things move in and out of a cell in the next few slides. So our first one is diffusion. Diffusion is a process by which molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. It is caused by the molecules bumping into each other. And as they bump into each other, they want to spread out and take up more and more space. When they start off, they're really close together, and over time, these molecules, after bumping into each other, spread out and take up more space. And so I have that down here to show you. I have just a really simple diagram here. And let's say, over time, here's our membrane even, dividing the cell. So here is the outside of the cell on this side, and this would be inside the cell. And what you can see are all of our purple dots, and there's way more on the left side than there are on the right side. And so over time, remember, we talk about diffusion being high concentration, a lot of molecules in one area, that'd be a high concentration. This would be a low concentration on this side, so there's very few particles in the space. And so over time, these particles are going to bump each other and diffuse into this space, as you can see in our next, kind of the other side of the diagram here. So over time, these particles are going to spread out and kind of be evenly distributed on either side. If this was our cell membrane here, now they're going to be evenly distributed on either side. They want to kind of balance out. So that would be an even number, or pretty much an even number, or evenly spaced would be a better way to put it, on either side of our cell membrane. And so that's the idea of diffusion, going from high concentration, like on this side, to lower concentration on this side. And again, that happens over time until things are balanced, where the concentration is same on the left as it is on the right. Okay? So next up is osmosis. And osmosis is diffusion of water, through a selectively permeable membrane. So now we're talking about water specifically. Osmosis is the diffusion of water. So osmosis and diffusion are both types of passive transport, which is the movement of materials through a cell membrane without using any energy. So in the previous slide, that process of diffusion where particles are moving through the cell membrane, the cell doesn't need to use any energy. They can just kind of slide right through without the cell having to pull in or push out anything. So it does not take any energy to do that for osmosis and diffusion. So again, diffusion in general is that idea of going from higher concentration to lower concentration. And the second part there was osmosis. And again, this was more specific to water. So osmosis is the diffusion of water through that membrane. So when water passes through, we call that osmosis. It's more of a specific type of diffusion. Alright guys, so now the first two we've talked about, osmosis and just diffusion in general, are both types of passive transport. Now we're looking at active transport. And so the word kind of gives it away. Active transport is the movement of materials through the cell membrane using energy. So now the cell's got to pull in or it's got to push out different materials. So it's called active transport. And so what happens here, embedded in the cell membrane, are these transport proteins. And transport proteins in the cell membrane use energy to move materials in and out of the cell. And you can see that down here where this whole layer, that's our cell membrane, and in blue are these transport proteins. Now, even though there's way more on the outside than there is on the inside, we're still going to be pumping these out of the cell. So you can see in step 1, these move into the protein, and then they are released over here in step 4 outside. So they're actually going from lower concentration down here to higher concentration. And the cell has to use energy. So a lot of times when you see active transport, that means the cell is going actually from a lower concentration to a higher concentration whenever active transport is needed. All right? And finally, our final type of the way we get things, not we, but cells get things in and out of them, is something known as engulfing. Engulfing, kind of just like it sounds. So some cells use engulfing to transport materials into the cell. A lot of our single-celled, like protists, so even like almost animal-like, ones that kind of go around, paramecium, amoebas, really amoebas I should say, are going to use the engulfing. And also like your white blood cells, they would use engulfing also to kind of surround and capture and kill bacteria or other viruses that invade you. So what happens here, the cell membrane surrounds the particle, then part of the cell membrane pinches off, forming a vacuole around the particle. And so in our picture down here, there's that maybe food particle, or again, if this is a white blood cell, this could be one of the invaders, and so it surrounds it around the food particle, they'll say here. And our next step is it kind of makes like a food vacuole, kind of engulfs it, surrounds it, makes a food vacuole. And you notice here in green, I'll show over here, are these lysosomes. And these lysosomes then are there for digestion, to break it down. So you can see they attach that food vacuole. In our last slide, they break down that food particle, in this case, into smaller molecules that the cell can then use. And so this is called engulfing. And just like it sounds, the cell engulfs whatever it's going to, I guess we'll say, eat, and over time breaks it down into what it can use. And so that's the process of engulfing. Now, on a final note, talk about why do cells have to be so small? Why aren't there cells that, why am I not one cell big? And it's really the idea of design and function here. So cells have to be so small so they can efficiently, move substances in and out and within the cell. So there's that delicate balance of life there where the cell's big enough so water can move in and out, some materials can move in and out, it's pumping some materials in and out. And if it was too big, it couldn't do that efficiently or well enough to survive. So it's really the right size it needs to be to survive in its environment. And that's why cells have to be so small. So 7th grade, I thank you for watching this today. Make sure you can go back, rewind. I went pretty fast. You can go back, take notes as you need to. If something was confusing, you can rewatch it. And also on Edmodo, there's a couple of videos that follow, or animations that follow that. So make sure you watch the animations that go along with this video. I thank you guys. Bye.